we train people that lack opportunity to be certified nursing assistants. We give them a career path all the way up to LPN, RN, PA, if they choose. And one of the things that we do to assist them in staying in their jobs is we do person-centered case management. And that person-centered case management helps my Dwyer scholars, we call them, get more yeses than nos. Because my Dwyer scholars are literally one flat tire away from homelessness. And they hear no all the time. And their lives have been built on no. And so when we work with them one-on-one, from the very minute we start with them, we do an intake process and identify things that are keeping them back.
Welcome to episode 65 of People Are the Answer. I truly believe that people are the only answer to the world's many problems. I'm Jeffrey M. Zucker, a serial entrepreneur here to learn how innovators are creating outsized, transformational social impact and to shine a light on all the good happening in a world often hyper-focused on the negative. Today's episode features Barb Clapp, CEO of Dwyer Workforce Development, where they provide free professional healthcare training for those lacking opportunities while also aiming to significantly improve care for seniors. I was honestly blown away by all that Barb has accomplished thus far in her life, especially having grown up under difficult circumstances. She's a first-gen college grad who, after 12 years in advertising, started her own communications firm that she ran for nearly 20 years prior to selling it and dedicating her life to helping raise up people in need. Barb and I discuss her career and entrepreneurial journeys, starting and growing Dwyer Workforce Development, including facilitating a $590 million business acquisition and conversion to a nonprofit, her passion for helping animals, and much more. Here's Barb Clapp on People Are the Answer. Barb, thanks so much for joining me on People Are the Answer.
I am so happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. It'd be great if you could start off by just telling us who you are, where you're based, and what your current role is.
I am in Baltimore, Maryland. That's our home base. I'm the CEO of Dwyer Workforce Development, and we also have locations in Texas and Florida.
Awesome. And in life in general, what would you say motivates you?
I am very driven to help people that lack opportunity, that have people that don't have a voice. I've spent much of my career in a volunteer role, giving a voice to the voiceless, whether it's in animal advocacy or people advocacy. But this part of my career is dedicated to helping people find that there's a street past their street.
That's a really cool perspective to put it in, and appreciate the work that you're doing for those people in need. But I'm curious, where did you grow up and what was it like there?
I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, in the city, in an area called Northwood. And I went to public school. And when I was in high school, I did get to go to a Catholic all-girls school and went on to Loyola College.
Got it. And I know Baltimore has, a lot of history in terms of what goes on there around law enforcement and drugs, and something I've learned a lot about being in drug policy reform. Is that something that you came face to face with growing up at all?
I did not really come face to face with it growing up. I did grow up in a very lower middle class neighborhood. And it was challenging in many ways growing up. So, but that was not one thing I faced. Actually, the drugs and the gun violence that we have today here in Baltimore, unfortunately.
Despite it not being those things directly, it sounds like you did have some tougher circumstances, and I'm curious how that helped you in your career.
My tough circumstances growing up made me extraordinarily resilient. And I decided a long time ago that my life would not look like it looked like when I was young. And it drove me to reach goals and be successful. And then also help people a little bit less resilient than me to find their path.
That passion around helping people that are less resilient, is there any particular experience or experiences from childhood that really showed you that importance of giving back and led you on that path?
No, it's interesting. I did not have a role model that was a volunteer or that kind of thing. I did have one person in my life who told me that I had value and that I was smart and I could do anything I wanted to do. When I was a young person, it changed as I got a little bit older. But that person, I feel like we all have a responsibility to tell people they're good and that they can accomplish things. And I did not have that experience with when I was growing up. I was given up for adoption and lived in a foster home for the first year of my life. And then for the first 14 years of my life, I lived in an abusive environment from the adoptive father. So, at that time growing up, I was told I was not smart and I was not attractive and I was, a million things. And when you have that told to you as a child, it's very difficult to overcome those circumstances. And we find that a lot of our Dwyer scholars have had that kind of negative reinforcement as they were growing up. Very hard to get past it. So I think I have an internal resilience marker that most people don't. And I just know that because one of my daughters is a social worker. And she actually did her graduate study on resilience. And resilience is tough. You have to have somebody tell you that you can do something most of the time.
Yeah, well, it definitely sounds like a harrowing experience that I'm sure, as horrible as it was, has made you who you are. And I know you were able to go to Loyola University in Maryland. What brought you there? How was that experience?
So as a first-gen grad, I had a good friend that kept pushing me to go to college. And she was going to Loyola. And at the time, we did not have good college counseling where I was. And I asked her where she was going, and she said Loyola. And I said, okay, I guess I'll apply there. And they gave me money. So that's why I went to Loyola. But it turned out to be a very good experience for me. I had to work several jobs to put myself through school. And it was a little bit crazy, and I was a commuting student, so I didn't have the same college experience as somebody would that lived on campus. But it was a good experience, and of course I believe education is one of the most important things that can move somebody forward. Our slogan here at Dwyer Workforce Development is education is the best medicine, because we educate people in healthcare careers.
Yeah, wow. Education is just such an incredible part of the foundation of getting anything done in our society. So can certainly appreciate that. And, I saw that after school, you spent nearly 12 years as the senior account executive and special projects manager at the Baltimore Jewish Times and Style magazine. How did you end up in that role?
Well, when I graduated from college, I was an English major, and I really didn't have many options as an English major other than teaching. Or a friend of mine told me to look into sales. So I started selling advertising for a couple different newspapers and magazines. And then a guy named Chuck Berger, who owned those chains of magazines and newspapers that you just referenced, hired me to come to work for him. And that was an incredible experience. He was my mentor. And he was one of the best business leaders I've ever met. So he taught me about being a leader. He taught me about being a good person. And he pushed me because he was very demanding. Was a very demanding leader. He wanted to see results. And that really shaped me, being there over those years. It formed me as a business person. And I couldn't be more grateful for that experience.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you had that. I think that, getting the right job and having the right boss in many cases isn't always an easy task. And sometimes there's a lot of luck involved, but it goes such a long way in preparing people for whatever it is they want to do with the rest of their lives.
For sure. And we really focus here at Dwyer Workforce Development on shaping people as they come into the workforce and helping them become the best people that they can be, and hopefully eventually be leaders. I'm really all about promoting people here so that they can grow and get new challenges. And we also have a very robust intern program here, because I think it's super important to teach young people the skill of how to act in a business environment.
Yeah, it's really cool to hear that you're doing that, and you saw how that helped you in your own circumstance, and to now be able to provide that opportunity to others must be rewarding.
It sure is. We had a young lady from one of the schools in the city that's an at-risk school, and she came in here as an intern for the year, and she wouldn't talk to anybody. And she stayed masked up the whole time she was here, even though we don't require masks from the pandemic here. And, we kept wondering, how are we going to get her? What are we going to do? Like, how can we get her in a different place than where she is? And she was painfully shy. So as a group, we decided that we wanted to give her one business skill. And I did talk to my daughter, who's a social worker, and she said, if you just give her the skill that you gave she and her sister, which was, I don't care if you're shy, that's fine. You don't have to say anything else. But when you meet somebody, you look them in the eye, you tell them that you're happy to meet them, and you shake their hand with a professional handshake. And that was our goal with our intern. And not only did we get there with her as a group, we worked with her, but she had to come in every morning and walk to each office and say hello to everyone and say goodbye when she left. And we also had her interview with myself and my COO and our head of case management before she left, and have a mock interview with each of us. And I know it was terrifying for her, but when she got to me, she did a really great job. And I thought to myself, you know what, she's going to go off to college. She was a high school intern. She's going to go off to college, and she's going to be able to manage better than she would have. So that made us feel really good.
Yeah, it's really cool what you can do, taking someone out of their comfort zone on a relatively consistent basis, and then sort of letting them run, from there. And it sounds like you had quite the impact, and I'm sure it'll be felt in her life for the rest of her life.
I hope so. We did see a change, and that's awesome. And it's funny, we have an intern now who just started yesterday, and he is again from a different program than she was in, but again, another enrichment program in Baltimore. And really impressed with that program. Actually, again, my daughter, the social worker, worked for them for a long time, and they identify kids in Title I schools in the city in third grade and work with them through to the end of high school. And he's a completely different person than she was. He walks in here. When he left yesterday, he on his own came to everybody's office and thanked them and said goodnight. And I thought, geez, look at that. Look what he got from the program he was in. And he's got a great future ahead of him. But now we're thinking about, keeping him on. He's just here for a short period of time, but we're thinking about keeping him on because he's so impressive.
That's great to hear, and excited to dig in a little more on the Dwyer front. But in the meantime, I'd love to hear about the next step in your career, which was founding Clapp Communications as the president and CEO. I believe you spent 18 years on that business. Can you tell me, how you ended up starting that company?
It was insane that I did it because I hadn't even worked in an advertising agency before. But being on the other side when I was selling advertising, I saw what I didn't like that agencies did, and I didn't think they served their customers well. And I had a couple really big customers. At the time, I had the president of Comcast, and my publisher that I mentioned that I liked so much died suddenly at age 58 from a heart valve replacement. And I knew that things were changing where I was, and the president of Comcast took me out to lunch and said, what are you going to do now? And I said, I've always wanted to start my own agency. And he said, well, if anybody can do it, you can. And I said, well, I've never had one before. I don't know how they run, but I appreciate your support. And he said, well, if you do it, I'll be your first customer. So I started it in the attic of my home, which is actually a finished attic. It's not like a normal person's attic. And I looked at my computer, and I had a list of people I knew, and I sent them an email and told them what I was doing. I'm sure most of them were like, she's crazy. But Comcast was my first client, and I did the AT&T Comcast merger across the country, and then several other former clients or business leaders that knew me. started giving me business, and I grew it. And we specialized in education, healthcare, not-for-profit, and some corporate work. And we became a national force in the communications world. We specialized a lot in public affairs and crisis PR. We got really good at that.
So what would you say the business was when you first started, and then what was it when it ended? I really like to see sort of that evolution of business.
Well, first of all, it was non-existent when it started. It was just a dream, right? And when I sold it, very few people sustain a small business for over 5 years. And it's surprising how large a small business is in the definition of small business. It's actually quite a large business when you think about it. But very few people sustain a small business for more than 5 years, and very few people end up selling a small business, particularly, and the percentage is even smaller when it's females. So I had a very saleable product when I decided to sell it, and had a great buyer, and I sold it, and gave me the opportunity to pursue running a not-for-profit, and that was my goal.
I mean, that's really incredible to be able to build something that was then able to fund the work that you really wanted to do long term.
You know what?
Really
that's an
incredible
interesting thing. That's an interesting way to put it. And you know what? I didn't think about it like that. I've never thought about it like that. And that's true. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, something that I often preach is sustainable business, sustainable operations, whether you're a for-profit or a nonprofit. If you can make your model sustainable, you'll be in a lot better place long term. And I think creating your own success and wealth in order to be able to do that work that you want to do is a way to do that. You know, I like to think that a lot of my business endeavors, a big piece of that is trying to fund the work that I want to do on the impact side. So it's really inspiring to see how you did that.
That gives me a lot to think about.
Always happy to provide some food for thought.
Thank you.
So you mentioned, selling the business in 2019, you sold the firm to commit your time to helping raise people up that were in challenging situations. How long was sort of the idea of selling on your mind? Was that a goal from the beginning, or did you kind of realize later on that it was a potential path?
It was a goal, but I didn't think it was attainable because, first of all, there were a couple reasons. The reasons that I stated earlier about people actually selling small businesses becoming reality is not common. The other reason I didn't believe it is I didn't think that they'd buy something that was my brand, because it was Clapp Communications, and my brand was what really became the driver for people doing business with us. And I didn't think anybody would buy it if I wasn't there, and they did, and it was very surprising. But I stayed on for 1.5 years, and he has since grown it and changed the name.
I mean, it says so much about what you built that you were able to put it in a place to function without you. I think that there's a lot of people with their own small businesses that they operate, and then, they can't really operate without them. And myself and my businesses, I've tried to build things that I can eventually step out of, try to create a path where they can be sustainable on their own. And I mean, the fact that you did that, you should certainly be proud of yourself and celebrate.
Thank you. I appreciate that. The only thing was my earnout was March 2020. It ended on March 2020, and that completely aligned with the beginning of the pandemic. So my dream of going out and running a not-for-profit right away was kind of squashed for a bit. Because the world shut down for a while, so I ended up doing fractional CEO work and fractional CMO work while I waited for the world to open up again.
Did that work that you did in that meantime, help you determine your next steps and sort of lead to where you are now, or was it just filler?
It was work that I enjoyed and made me proud, and it was actually people I had known that came to me and asked me to do it. So that was good. I'm not really crazy about consulting. I feel that people are not as engaged with you, and you go back and you have the same conversation that you had like the last meeting, and nothing got done because there's not a driver. And so I really wanted to run a not-for-profit, and I continued to volunteer. And, not-for-profits had to pivot during that time, and I was on 4 or 5 boards, so I spent a lot of time helping them figure out how do we stay in business, and pivot during this time. And then it just happened that during that period of time, one of my clients was CFG Bank, and the owner of CFG Bank asked me to join the bank board. And while I was leaving a board meeting in the spring of 21, I said to him, hey, I want to run for a not-for-profit. I think the pandemic's opening up. Do you know about anything, or will you keep your ears open? And he said, I'll call you tomorrow. And that was Jack Dwyer. And Jack wanted me to start and run this not-for-profit that I run now called Dwyer Workforce Development. So it all worked out. And I think that had it been sooner, I wouldn't have found my home. And my home is here. Like, I know, something deep in your gut. I know that this is where I should be. And it fits just like it should fit. And we're having so much fun growing it and building it.
Really, really awesome to hear that. And as you mentioned, you're now CEO of Dwyer Workforce Development, a 501c3. For our listeners, can you tell us what Dwyer Workforce Development is?
Absolutely. It is a not-for-profit that helps people who lack opportunity improve the healthcare staffing crisis and improve the lives of seniors. That's our mission. And we train people that lack opportunity to be certified nursing assistants. We give them a career path all the way up to LPN, RN, PA, if they choose. And one of the things that we do to assist them in staying in their jobs is we do person-centered case management. And that person-centered case management helps my Dwyer scholars, we call them, get more yeses than nos. Because my Dwyer scholars are literally one flat tire away from homelessness. And they hear no all the time, and their lives have been built on no. And so when we work with them one-on-one, from the very minute we start with them, we do an intake process and identify things that are keeping them back, such as we might say, great that you want to be a certified nursing assistant. Do you have transportation? And then the answer is usually no. So that's a barrier to success. Do you have children? Yes. Do you have childcare? No. Another barrier to success. So we identify those right up front, and then we provide comprehensive wraparound services to assist them in their journey to be successful.
It sounds like tremendous life-transforming opportunity for the people that you're helping. It's really exciting to hear that exists and is helping people. Was the organization in existence prior to your time there, or were you part of starting it?
I started it. Jack had the vision for it, and he and I are both extraordinarily entrepreneurial, and we're risk takers, and both of us are good at figuring out how to make things happen. So he brought me on board, and we weren't a 501c3 yet, so I attained 501c3 status. I incubated it here in Maryland, which was good because I already had the relationships here in Maryland. But then we went on, and we've grown into Texas and into Florida. Another part of what we're doing, which is my passion project, is we're building healthcare villages. And these are places where we're going into that have no opportunity at all. So we're going into East Baltimore and West Baltimore City, and both areas are underserved, to say the least. And we're working to put housing for our Dwyer scholars, childcare for our Dwyer scholars, and a resource center that will provide them with opportunities for enrichment. And we'll use the resource center to recruit. We'll hire in the neighborhoods in which we're going, and we feel like this will give us additional ammunition to help our Dwyer scholars stay in jobs and grow in jobs, and take them from a $14 an hour job to hopefully a 6-figure income, because if you're the director of nursing somewhere, that's what you're going to do. And you're going to change generations ahead of you.
Yeah, absolutely. You're investing in those generations, and really can appreciate that. And I'm curious you mentioned starting in Maryland and sort of incubating there. Where does your work reach now?
So we're in Texas, and we're in Florida as well. And the reason we went to Texas is that my patron, Jack Dwyer, who had the idea for this, also had the thought that he'd like to find a way to fund it long term as a not-for-profit. So I led a deal to acquire 64 skilled nursing facilities in Texas, throughout the state of Texas. They were for-profit skilled nursing facilities, and now they're not-for-profit skilled nursing facilities. And we try to live up to the mission. They were always well run, and they're great facilities, but we try to live up to a not-for-profit mission. So we're providing like respite care for the homeless people in Austin, and we're providing charity care, those kinds of things. But in addition, we also have the workforce program in Texas. But I have 7,100 employees in Texas in the skilled nursing facilities, and I have a management company that runs them, but they report to me. I think there's 230 of them. And then I have the workforce program in Maryland, Texas, and then Florida.
Wow, it's really incredible to see the growth that you've experienced in, I believe, less than 2 years.
Yes, it's been less than 2 years, and it's because of my team. My team is incredible. My case managers are doing God's work. In Maryland, the first year we trained 287 Dwyer scholars with an 84% retention rate, and this year will be, between the three states, close to 2,000 Dwyer scholars. And I really credit our case managers with the retention. And our scholars, we help them find jobs, and they have HR departments, but they don't have the support that they need. And if you aren't modeled to make decisions, you can't make decisions. So a lot of what our case managers do is support our scholars in just everyday decision making, and growth decisions and career decisions, and if they're on the job and they think they're not used to being on a job, and what are the dynamics you have on a job, and they think somebody maybe wasn't nice to them, and they'll call and say, I'm walking off the job, and my case managers are like, do not do that, do not walk off the job, tell me what's going on, and have you contacted HR?
What an invaluable resource to have sort of that thought partnership in such like such a personal part of your life, in terms of like what you're doing at work and the specifics of the relationships and what's going on. I mean, having that individual to talk to has got to just go so tremendously far.
I think it's the differentiator. I call it the secret sauce. I really do think that's what makes a difference. And we all have had a work environment that didn't fit right, or didn't feel good to us, or a leader that we couldn't relate to their style, or that kind of thing. And my case managers help them navigate that. And if they haven't done it before, they just don't know how to navigate it. And we don't. Sometimes we don't, who've had, a long career. Just sometimes you have to have some other perspective on what is going on in your life, and they do that.
I want to go back briefly to something you said earlier about the Texas acquisition. You said that Mr. Dwyer wanted to create a sustainable organization, and that's something that came up earlier in our conversation. Just if you can create a sustainable organization, you can focus on the work, and you don't have to be going around trying to raise money all the time. And so, I want to give the listeners sort of an idea of the scale. You mentioned 7,100 employees. I read that the acquisition was for $590 million for this skilled nursing facility portfolio. So, I mean, you guys are a true business that is powering impact and change, where all the dollars are getting funneled back into the work.
Absolutely. And you obviously understand the vision of Jack Dwyer. He's a brilliant man. And, people go about it. opposite way of the way he's going about it. And so our money is tied up in deal covenants for the first few years, but in perpetuity, this not-for-profit is stable. And don't mistake, though, I'm spending a lot of time trying to raise money. I'm always looking for money because the more money I raise, the more good I can do with my healthcare villages, and I can expand. We're getting calls from all over the country of people who want us to come to their state. And, we're being selective. And I would tell you that a $750 million deal and starting a workforce program in 3 states in 1 year is my capacity at the moment. But we will be growing, and having that money and being able to put my healthcare villages. I met this person when I was in Texas. I was in Houston last week, and this gentleman is in the poorest part of Houston, Northeast Houston, and he started a workforce development program 30 years ago in healthcare, and he works on a shoestring, and we're going to be partnering with him to help him reach out to his neighborhood and do more workforce training. They have the highest rate of recidivism of any neighborhood, and no jobs when people come back. So we'll be working with him to help him expand his program. And that's so cool that I get to do that kind of thing now, And then I'm working with 2 faith leaders here in East and West Baltimore for the healthcare village, but I'm meeting with a faith leader in Houston to maybe do it there. So, it's pretty cool that we can make impact all over this country as we grow.
Yeah, no, it really is. And you mentioned, raising the additional funds to grow even further. It's so important. And having that base is the sustainable aspect that I love. But obviously, the more you raise, the further it can go. If you're enjoying this episode, I would greatly appreciate if you could review, comment, or subscribe on your favorite platforms. Your engaged support goes a long way in helping the show grow and getting our impactful guests heard. Now back to the show. And you mentioned, recidivism rates and helping those individuals. I work a lot in criminal justice reform, especially in reentry. So I'm curious, is there like a specific path for people coming out of incarceration to go into your program?
Yes, we're working on it. It is more difficult. It depends on the state's rules for people that were incarcerated, and it also depends on why they were incarcerated in some cases. But my case managers are working with people to get their records expunged. And if we can get their records expunged, we can get them jobs in skilled nursing facilities. They're more regulated than some of the other types of jobs available, or not available, depending on, it's tough finding jobs when you're coming back from, difficult journey that you've just had. So we're hoping, many times, it's a mistake that somebody made, and it impacts their lives, the rest of their lives. And we're trying to make sure that we can help as much as we can.
Yeah, that's an important aspect of it to me. I hate the idea that someone's worst mistake could define the rest of their lives. And even many times in our justice system, it isn't even as clear as that, as it being a mistake. It oftentimes is a victim of circumstance. So really glad to hear that you're working with that population. And I'm curious, what would the path be for someone that's interested in applying, and who qualifies?
You have to lack opportunity, and if you don't have a job or you're making $14 an hour, you lack opportunity. So absolutely, we're very, very flexible about who applies, and most people just go to our website and apply on our website, and then one of our service navigators gets right back to them and starts the intake process that I told you about. And there are some people that we start working with and they realize that healthcare is not for them, but at least we start them on their journey, and we start them thinking about, okay, well, what is for me? What can I do? So anybody that reaches out to us, we are intentional about helping them figure out their path. And if we're not in the state where they are, we do have a resource to refer them to, an employer in where they are, and try to help them get that CNA training.
I mean, it sounds like you guys provide quite a bit of back-end support. You talked about the service navigator, the case managers, and you mentioned, that sort of in the you have 7,100 employees. What portion of that are sort of the back end of your organization that is doing all that work?
We rely on certified nursing assistants and nursing staff completely. No healthcare institution exists without a certified nursing assistant or a health aide or a nurse. And so we have to staff our own facilities with Dwyer, but we also staff other facilities throughout Texas with Dwyer scholars. But there is a tsunami of aging people, and there is already a healthcare staffing crisis. There are not enough nurses or certified nursing assistants or any kind of almost any health career. There are not enough people right now. And with the tsunami of aging people throughout this country, there is nobody to take care of them. So our work is really essential to try to conquer this healthcare staffing crisis.
Yeah, it certainly is essential. And how big is the support staff that's supporting all of these scholars, between the case managers and the various other positions?
For the workforce development program?
Yes.
Okay. So the workforce development program has 20 employees right now. So they're doing a lot. Their plates are full.
I'm sure they're very busy.
Yeah, our job descriptions always include a bullet for et cetera.
I love that. And are there any particular individuals that have gone through the program that you're familiar with that have really stuck out to you that you want to give examples of?
Oh, of course. Every day we have these incredible people that have gone through the program. When I was in Houston, we're actually doing a 500-person apprenticeship program in conjunction with Houston Community College. And we had two of our newly hired Dwyer scholars there, and because it's an apprenticeship program, they're working from day one, and we're using our facilities to do that. Whereas if you're just getting CNA training, you don't get paid till you start a job. You're just, it's unpaid training. So I had a young man come up to me that is a Dwyer scholar, and he was attending the event, and he said to me, "You've changed my life." And that's an amazing thing for a person to say to you. But every board meeting, we start off with good news moments, and we've got to really sort through all the good news moments that we have. And when we do this press conference on Thursday that we're having in West Baltimore, announcing that we're going to be the foundational partner to build this healthcare village in West Baltimore, we're going to have a couple scholars there, and they're going to be on stage and speak about their journey. But day after day, we have people saying that their lives are changing because they're part of this program. And I had a Dwyer scholar that was living in her car, and she came here to our offices and ran out of gas and was sitting in her car crying. And we were able to get her in here, get her on Wi-Fi, give her money for gas, and assist her with temporary housing until she could get on her feet. But there's a million examples, but there's simple examples too. We had somebody that was in an abusive relationship and had a domestic violence episode in the middle of the night where their door got knocked down, and they didn't want to go to work the next day and leave their child and their mother in the home. And we just went over and fixed the door, and it wasn't a big deal, but it kept her in her job, and it made her feel secure, and she didn't have money to fix the door, So, I could tell you a million of them, but all I care about is they're able to get their needs met and move forward.
Having an organization that pays attention to those details like that is, that's really life-changing for so many individuals. So many of these small things make up the experience that people are having in their lives. And, I really appreciate that you guys pay attention to that.
No, thank you. Well, sometimes it's those things, the smaller things that derail us, and they shouldn't. And so we're trying to make that happen. We're also, beach turnoff is really a big problem. Gas and electric turnoff. And we've been partnering with a lot of organizations in Maryland. BGE, Baltimore Gas and Electric, is working with us to prevent turnoff. And so we're finding corporate partners that are willing to help us on those things. And we're also working with other not-for-profits. We get many, you said you are in criminal justice reform, but we're also trying to get some of our scholars from, House of Ruth, which is a place for women that are experiencing domestic violence, healthcare for the homeless, people that are homeless that are looking for jobs. So we're finding, and like Urban Alliance, that's a program in the city for young people. So it's pretty cool that we can work with these other not-for-profits and team together to spread mission impact.
Absolutely. It's really the power that you're able to get out of teaming up, just goes such a long way. And the organization has grown and evolved quite a bit over the last couple of years. What do you envision for and hope for the future of the organization?
I for sure want to be throughout the country. And I want to have staggering numbers of Dwyer scholars with a staggering retention rate number. And I want to have these healthcare villages throughout the country. I think that's really important. And then long term, I think we have to think, what else can we do for our seniors? That's another piece of this, improving the lives of seniors. And we do that through the healthcare staffing. But is there something that we can do to improve the lives of seniors in more ways than this?
And you've mentioned the healthcare villages a few times. We've gotten some detail, but can you specifically sort of paint a picture of what a healthcare village looks like?
Absolutely. A healthcare village will have multi-income housing with childcare either in the space or adjacent to the space. And we will also have a resource center, and the resource center will be available to our Dwyer scholars. Their home environments often do not support virtual training, and it's difficult for them. So we'll be able to let our scholars come in and be trained as a cohort in our resource centers. We'll also have support services like around tax time, we'll do tax support, open enrollment, we'll do open enrollment support. We're going to leave our resource center open to other not-for-profits to execute their programs in that space if they choose to. We're hiring people from the neighborhoods to run them, and I think that's the vision now. But I think that it will evolve, and I think that new things will come to us that will allow us to use this resource center to its best possible use and serve the neighborhood and their Dwyer scholars.
Really excited for your growth that's upcoming. And I've been talking to an organization that when they're vetting nonprofits to invest in, they look at how much they're transforming the lives of the people that they're serving. And I imagine that the people that are going through your program would give you guys scores with flying colors and in how well you're doing in terms of transforming their lives.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And make sure you tell the organization about us. But I hope that they're proud to be Dwyer scholars. We do a lot of other fun things for them. Next week is CNA week, so we're sending the decorative cookies to all our CNAs and all of their jobs, and we have partnerships with entertainment venues. So, like, we have a partnership with the National Aquarium here in Baltimore, and we have days where our Dwyer scholars can take their families and have a family day there. And, they can't afford a ticket to the National Aquarium, but they get to spend a whole day there with their children. So we're trying to do things that also enrich their families' lives, and hopefully.
Lots of really nice touches that show you're acknowledging the human element of all of this. It isn't just about numbers. You are truly making people's lives better, more enjoyable, providing experiences for their families, and creating an all-around better life experience.
Thank you. I didn't mention also that we've developed something called the Dwyer Scholar app, and it's available in the App Store, and our Dwyer scholars can download the app to their phone, and we communicate with them on a regular basis. I told you about the camps that we're providing. for the Dwyer scholars because a lot of CNAs quit in the summer because their children are out of school, and we are teaming with the YMCA to provide camp opportunities for our scholars children this summer, and we just pushed it out over the app, and our scholars could then say, yes, I'm interested in it, and these are the ages of my children. And we have a thumbs up, a thumbs down, or a thumbs sideways on the app, and they get incented to let us know how their day was. Was it thumbs up? Was it thumbs down? Was it some thumbs center? Because if my case manager starts to see a bunch of thumbs down, that's a red flag that something's going on, and they need to reach out to them. But they are incented, and they can get food vouchers and all kinds of things participating in the program that we have on the Dwyer Scholar app. And so that's a really cool thing that somebody here on my team innovated, and it's working super well for us.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that you guys are innovative like that. I mean, having that direct communication and touch point with your users is so important. And, being able to gather some data on what their experience is like, I'm really glad to hear that you guys are really embracing that technology.
Yeah, we are. And data is king around here. We have to have data because it helps us get more money. It helps us raise money. So, one of the things that is really important to me here is making sure that my back of the house is in good shape. Because, you're starting a not-for-profit from scratch. So we had no policies, we had no procedures, we had nothing, and, we're growing fast. And my concern is that we keep our back of the house in good shape so that we can continue to move forward at the pace in which we are. And so it's important. We just instituted, a couple like Salesforce. We just put that in place, and it's a version of it. That's why I kind of hesitated, because that's not what we really call it. But CRM. But we're doing all kinds of things to make sure that our technology is helping us move forward as well.
Very glad to hear that. Love what you guys are doing. You've obviously accomplished such an incredible amount in your career. And you mentioned your original publisher being a mentor to you. Has there been anyone else that's been a especially impactful mentor for you?
Yes, I would say that my adoptive mother was also. She's no longer with us, but when we finally left that bad environment when I was age 14, we didn't have any money, we didn't have anything, and she hadn't had a career, and she started selling real estate, and she became like the top real estate person in the area, and then also she became an office manager in the highest grossing, highest profit office. And that was a real role model for me, to be able to see, pull yourself up and move forward and be successful and manage to raise 2 children alone. So she was. And then I've had a lot of, good friends and people like, my friend Katie that told me to go to college, and, that kind of thing, that have been very good role models for me. I'm a lucky person.
It's great that you had those individuals to set that example, your mom in particular, to see her sort of come out of the difficulties that you guys experienced and soar had to be something that was invigorating to see.
I think back, when you're young, you take it for granted, right? But now I think back, and it could not have been easy, It could not have been easy. So I really admire that. She also was a person that said, everything happens for a reason. And she was kind of a tough, she was a toughie, get over it type of person. But I'm not necessarily that person, but it does help you be resilient, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I have a few more for you, but first, if you'd like, you can ask me a question.
Yeah, I do have a question for you because I've looked into you and I have heard about you before, but and you're doing very cool things, lots of cool things. But what's next for you?
what's next for me? It's pretty broad. I mean, I'm always up to quite a lot of things. Right now, I'm spending a lot of time on my film production business. Always working on drug policy and criminal justice reform. Obviously, aiming to grow the podcast and shine a light on people that are doing incredible work. And specifically in the film space, I really believe that film content is a great way to create change, to create empathy. It's been proven in other areas in the past, and so I hope to be able to integrate important messages into my film work, among my various other projects.
That's pretty cool. Good for you.
Thank you.
Well, can I ask a follow-up?
Absolutely.
Okay, so what's your motivator?
Yeah, I mean, my motivator it was kind of ingrained in me growing up by my parents. My dad's sort of mantra was Tikkun Olam, repair the world, and that became, that became sort of the guiding message for our family. And so, in everything that we do, we try to have a positive impact on someone, on the world, however we can. And, all four of my grandparents are Polish Holocaust survivors. And so, I'm motivated not only to repair the world, but also to do justice to their efforts to survive and to manifest my existence. And so I'm always trying to honor and do justice to that, and do my part, and help people in any way that I can, and also do whatever I can to make sure that my wife and kids have awesome lives as well.
That's amazing. I really admire your parents for raising you that way.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. I'm very fortunate to have them. I really appreciate the thoughtful questions, and this could be a tough one. So if everything, in one way or another, however you want to see it, if everything were to end tomorrow, what would you either be most proud of or most grateful for in your life?
My family. My two daughters, Brittany and Katie, and my husband, John, and all the rescue dogs that I've had throughout my life. So really, it's creating this life that I'm so blessed to have, and just so lucky to have my girls and my husband. That's my number one.
I can definitely understand that and really appreciate the power of family. And you mentioned the dogs, and you also mentioned previously in our conversation briefly that you've done work with animals. I'm certainly a dog lover and an animal lover. I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about your work in that space.
I would venture to say that a lot of people would say I'm an animal advocate. I had been, even as a young child, I'd find strays and bring them home and try to find them homes, but it's just kind of the way I'm wired. And then I was fortunate to be able to join the Maryland SPCA board I guess I was on it about 14 years ago. And at that time, animal advocacy was starting to really pivot, and we were a kill shelter, as all of them were really. And during my time on the Maryland SPCA board, we became a live release, a no-kill shelter. We did trap, neuter, return. We started a spay-neuter clinic. We started a veterinarian clinic. We went into the community and started doing community service with people's pets because they can't afford to give them the care they need or the food they need. We started a food pantry. So all of that was just really, really great work that we did. And then now, fast forward, they asked me back to be on the board because they wanted some institutional knowledge. So I'm back on the Maryland SPCA board. And then I'm also, I've been involved with the Humane Society of the United States now for probably, I don't know how many years, a zillion years. Right now, unfortunately, I can't give them as much time as I would like, but I do. And then a couple times I've gone out to Best Friends Animal Society and done mission trips there and volunteered at Best Friends and worked with the horses and the pigs and the dogs.
That's awesome. The animals are lucky to have you, as is your SPCA board that you mentioned. And I really like what you said about helping people with their pets, that don't have the resources that they need. I think so often in the housing crisis, pets can be neglected. I live in Denver where, the unhoused population is really struggling here. And, oftentimes when you speak to people in the community, someone might say, well, why didn't you go to a shelter? Or why didn't you do this? And among many answers, oftentimes it's, well, I can't bring my dog there. They're part of my family. I'm not leaving them. And I can certainly appreciate that.
Yes, it's tough. And right now, there's a big problem with housing just in general because rental properties, people can't keep up with the rent. And we're having a big influx of animals because people are not able to keep them. And we're doing everything we can to have animals stay in their homes because, sometimes that's all the people have left, So it's a tough situation. And so to me, these community outreach things that we're doing with the food and the vet care are critical to, and at some point also, we were working with Meals on Wheels, and because they found that when they delivered on Meals on Wheels, people delivered at Meals on Wheels. I volunteer there several times. That people were eating half their food and giving half their food to their animals, and so we started doing a partnership with Meals on Wheels and putting food in the deliveries, dog and cat food deliveries, in the Meals on Wheels deliveries. That's important too.
That's awesome. Appreciate you sharing that and all the incredible work that you're doing. The sort of big question that I ask every guest is this: if you could snap your fingers and fix one thing in the world, what would it be, and how do you think that change would reverberate?
That's a hard question. There's so much, in my opinion, that needs to be fixed. The climate concerns me. There's so many things that need to be fixed. I wish I could answer you in a succinct answer, but I can't even narrow down one thing. And I've thought about it, but the environment's messed up. There's wars everywhere. There's people intolerance. Maybe intolerance. I think that might be one. Let's have a willingness to at least hear what somebody else has to say, and maybe you'll learn something from them. So maybe fixing intolerance.
I mean, I think that would have very powerful reverberations. It's something that's come up in various capacities in this question before, in terms of having empathy for others and how far that could go. It's really a shame to see some of the hate in the world, and for all those things that you mentioned that are going on around the world in terms of our problems and our wars. I like to remind people that for all of that, there's a lot of great things going on. For every one of those, I like to think there's more great things going on. And people like you, people who are the answer, are working hard to make the world a better place. And we're trying to shine a light here on all of the good things that are happening while the media focuses on the bad.
I 1000% agree with you. I sit at tables, conference room tables, or church tables, or nonprofit tables with people, and I sit there and I say to myself, my goodness, these people are good people, and they're everywhere. I am so fortunate to encounter good people every day. Every person on my staff out here are good people, but I get to meet them in the community, and there are so many good people. You are 1000% correct.
Well, I've learned an incredible amount throughout our discussion. I'm really moved by the work that you're doing. I'm sure that our listeners are as well. How can people that are interested support you and your impact?
I would love for people to check out our website, and they can donate to us. If they have ideas for potential partnerships, shoot us an email and we'll follow up on them. I'm looking for resources, all kinds of resources and ideas, and we're open to everything. And our motto here is not one size fits all. So we'd love if people throw ideas at us, because we'd love to hear them. And you can go on our social media and follow us and give us some ideas too.
Awesome. I will make sure to include those links in the show notes. And while you're mentioning that, I'll also take an opportunity to plug 2 past episodes of potential partners for you. One being Jason Wang from Free World. Really love what they're doing, helping people who are coming out of incarceration getting jobs, as well as Harley Blakeman from Honest Jobs, doing similar work, hiring platform for fair chance hiring. And, if those are of interest, let me know offline and we can discuss further, but also passing those along to the listeners. And Barb, again, thank you so much for being here and for your time. Your time is incredibly valuable and you're doing so many incredible things with it. So I want to give you back as much as I can and excited to get your story out there.
Thank you. And thank you for your time. And thank you for caring. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of People Are the Answer. If you enjoyed the episode, share it with friends, and reviews or subscriptions on your favorite platforms go a long way to help the show grow. I want to share these incredible people and their remarkable work with as many others as possible. Thanks for your support. For more, go to peoplearetheanswer.com.